If you're interested in knowing more about Nigerian history, whether you're a Nigerian or non-Nigerian, and you've been looking for resources to get genuine and important facts about history that are not usually documented in Nigerian history, then you've come to the right place, because today I'm going to be sharing some of these recommendations with you. So let's get started. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's Rachel here. As always, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a thing. Like this video as well so that it is referred to other viewers who may consider it useful. So like I said, I'm going to be sharing some great recommendations on Nigerian history. I'm very passionate about history. I love Nigerian history. I love the fact that at least in the past 10 to 15 years, we've seen a lot of Nigerian history books come out, written with genuine accounts and important facts that have been intentionally left out in some of the books that we were made to read in secondary school or university, that do not really aptly capture the account of Nigeria's history. So if you're looking for those kind of books that go in depth and expose a lot of things that the average Nigerian does not really know, because the people who documented Nigeria's history are not Nigerians and don't really know how these things happen, and of course they are writing history from an oppressor's narrative, and I mean, we need things by Nigerians. So I'm going to be sharing some of these books that I came across. Some I've started reading, some I've actually finished, some I've not gotten to reading at all, but these are interesting titles and I've glanced through them just to get a feel of what they're about. I'm going to start with Max Yolun's book. Max Yolun is a Nigerian writer and a well-known historian. His books are fuego, you guys. His books are fire. If you are looking for Nigerian history, like literally, you need to read his books. Like, he gives genuine apt accounts, especially things that we never knew existed. Like, I'm Nigerian, and how old am I? Like, the books that I read in secondary school, oh my goodness, like my goodness, the books that we read in secondary school for like history of Nigeria, I can't even tell you how different these accounts are. Like, some of the things that were just conveniently left out to paint people who were playing major roles in this history as the good people, and then Nigerians were like, so I'm really passionate about this, and I'm very happy that these books are actually out there. So without wasting much time, let's get to it. The first one is Soldiers of Fortune. It's by Max Yolun. This is story of Nigeria's political journey between January 1st, 1984 and August 27th, 1993. This is the story of how things fell apart. So this book is Soldiers of Fortune. It covers Nigerian politics from Buhari to Babangida, 1983 to 1993. I don't know whether this is the book that we selected to read as our book of the month in the Reader's Hub, and it was so good, you guys. The things that I learned from this book, I was actually looking to read these books again this year. Let me just let you know that it explains why some of the things that are happening in Nigeria today are happening. That's all I'll say, but this is definitely a must read. The second recommendation is also by Max Yolun. It's titled Nigeria Soldiers of Fortune. So this book is different from the other one. That one is just Soldiers of Fortune. This is Nigeria Soldiers of Fortune, the Abacha and Obasanjo years. And in this book, he really goes in depth. Let me just read out the synopsis of this book. The cataclysmic decade that is the focus of this book was a transformational watershed era during which Nigeria was subject to several near-death experiences. The country nearly tore itself apart after the northern-led military government annulled the results of the 1993 presidential election won by the southerner Moshood Abiola. This mini-history of a nation's life also reflects on three mesmerizing protagonists who personified that era. First up is Abiola, the multi-billionaire businessman who had his election victory voided by the generals who made him rich and later suffered at their hands. General Sani Abacha was the mysterious and reclusive ruler under whose watch pro-democracy activists were arrested and murdered. He also saw He also oversaw a terrifying Orwellian state security operation. Although many now revile Abacha, the author eschews selective amnesia, reminding Nigerians that they goaded him into seizing power. The third protagonist is General Olusegun Obasanjo, who was an embodiment of Nigeria's juxtapositions, a former military ruler who became an unlikely symbol of democracy. The penumbra of military rule still looms over Nigeria 20 years after the soldiers departed, and key personalities featured in this book remain in government, including the current president. Jeez. Anyway, so yeah, this is such a really good book, and I think that one thing I love about these two books that Max Yolun has written is the fact that he actually writes it in such a beautiful, like when you read this book, you almost, if not for the names, you feel like as if it's a fiction book. Like, he writes beautifully, and he's intentional about not making the book, sound like some history textbook that you have to read in secondary school and it's just dates and places and events. This book reads like a work of art, and I feel like it's something that everybody should read. So the next one that I'm going to talk about is Oil, Politics and Violence. This is also by Max Yolun, 1966 to 1976. So these three are by Max Yolun. This one comes first, that's OPV, Oil, Politics and Violence. Then SOF is Soldiers of Fortune, that comes next. And then the third one is Nigeria, Soldiers of Fortune. So if you're able to get all three, then that will give you like amazing info on Nigerian history from 1966 all the way down to the Obasanjo years. So these three books are very, very, very important. This one talks about Nigeria's military coup culture. So let me just read out the back of this book. When Nigeria gained independence from Britain in 1960, hopes were high that it would become Africa's first superpower and a stabilizing democratic influence in the region. Instead, Nigeria reeled under one military coup after another in a story that Americans may remember mostly for the grim details of the Biafran War. With mineral wealth and over 140 million people, the most educated workforce in Africa, the new Nigeria seemed positioned for success. In this book, an insider traces the details of hope and ambition gone wrong. The country lumbered from crisis to crisis, with the democratic government eventually being overthrown in a violent military coup in January 1966. From then until 1999, the army held on to power almost interruptedly under a succession of increasingly authoritarian military governments and army coups. Military coup and military rule, which began as an emergency aberration, became a seemingly permanent feature of Nigerian politics. And so the author names and explores how both the British influence and the promotion system within the military echelons aggravated rivalries between individuals and regional ethnic groups. He also shows how various factions in the military were able to hold onto power and resist civil and international pressure for democratic governance by exploiting the country's oil wealth and ethnic divisions to its advantage. So, these three books by Max Yolun, amazing. The next one is What Britain Did to Nigeria. This is also by Max Yolun. I think this was published in 2021. I got a copy and I actually started reading it. I didn't finish it not because of anything, but just because I wanted to read romance. But I haven't finished it. I started it and I've been loving it so far. So this is a short history of conquest and rule. It's titled What Britain Did to Nigeria, and it's an expose of the British Empire's shameful impact on Africa's most populous state. This synopsis is proper. I need to read this out. Most accounts of Nigeria's colonization were written by British officials, presenting it as a noble civilizing mission to rid Africans of barbaric superstition and corrupt tribal leadership. Thanks to this skewed writing of history, many Nigerians today still have empire nostalgia and view the colonial period through rose-tinted glasses. Max Yolun offers a bold rethink, an unromanticized history, arguing compellingly that colonialism had few benevolent intentions, but many unjust outcomes. It may have ended slavery and human sacrifice, but it was accompanied by extreme violence. Ethnic and religious identity were cynically exploited to maintain control, while the forceful remolding of long-standing legal and social practices permanently altered the culture and internal politics of indigenous communities. The aftershocks of this colonial meddling are still being felt decades after independence. Popular narratives often suggest that the economic and political turmoil are homegrown, but the reality is that Britain created many of Nigeria's crises and has left them behind for Nigerians to resolve. This is a definitive head-on confrontation with Nigeria's experience under British rule, showing how it forever changed the country, perhaps cataclysmically. I started it and it's an amazing one. Like, you guys, every Nigerian needs to read this book. A lot of Nigerians do not have any form of an account of how Nigeria, or what, I mean, there was no Nigeria before Lord Lugard and whatever his mistress or wife did, you know, but I mean, the space that is now Nigeria and the neighboring states, a lot of Nigerians have no clue as to how those states and how those communities operated before the British came. So Nigerians literally have been sort of made to think that Africa indeed was a dark continent and Nigerians were living in caves and were very uneducated, illiterate, whatever it is. And this is what has been captured as Nigerian history. The British came, saved Nigeria from barbarism, but this book really shows how Nigeria actually, the space that is called Nigeria, existed even before the British came. The next book that I'm going to recommend on Nigerian history is Formation, The Making of Nigeria from Jihad to Amalgamation. This is also another book that is somewhat similar to what Britain did to Nigeria because of the time frame that it's covering. And this is written by Fola Fabule and Feyi Fawemi. This is also another good account. I love the fact that these books actually, in the middle, you can see some photographs and pictures and evidence of how these communities existed before amalgamation. So this is jihad, I think, like in 1804. So this is early 19th century all the way to early 20th century, and how the space that is Nigeria was actually being occupied at that point in time. So let me read out the synopsis. What do you get when daredevil jihadists, mad English missionaries, and proud, stubborn, warring natives meet in a clash? Nigeria. Formation, The Making of Nigeria from Jihad to Amalgamation, tracks the unlikely series of events and characters that turned a collection of disparate nations into a British colony in 1914. But the story of Nigeria's formation begins much earlier, in 1804, when the jihadists launched their attack on countries along the Niger River. What unfolds is a story of conquest and slavery, betrayals and bravery, rivers and riots, victors and vanquished, all of which are central to understanding modern black struggles. Formation runs like the rivers Niger and Benue through the rise and fall of empires. It explores Danfodio's revolutionary jihad and the spread of Islam, the fall of the Oyo Empire, the influence of the returnee freed slaves, the growing influence of Christianity, and the palm oil politics in the Niger Delta, in the territory that would come to be known as Nigeria. Inextricably linked to this is the story of the ascendancy of the British Empire and the Industrial Revolution. Influential figures of Nigeria's historical past, like the founder of the Sokoto Caliphate, Usman Danfodio, Yoruba linguist Samuel Ajayi Crowther, powerful slave trader Madam Tinubu, British colonial administrator Frederick Lugard, and suffragette and mother to Fela Kuti, Fumilayo Ransom Kuti, are re-examined, moving them from myth to reality. Fabule and Fawemi challenge the orthodox understanding of Nigeria's past as merely a product of colonial interference, revealing an incredibly complicated portrait of a nation with a tangled history and self-determination. You guys definitely need to pick a copy of this book if you are interested in Nigerian history from jihad to amalgamation. Also, to the recommendations, I would add 2 books by Olasupo Sasore. I came across Olasupo Sasore's documentary on Netflix. It's titled The Journey of an African Colony. It's also a documentary that you should watch on Netflix if you're interested in Nigerian history. Very beautifully done, with a lot of facts, with a lot of things that people don't know. He did a lot of research getting to that, and it was just amazing seeing how he could go to some of these places that still exist in Lagos, in Nigeria, and in the UK till today. So the 2 books from him that I would also recommend, even if I tried to buy one and it was like 10,000 naira, and I was like, no, is Possessed, A History of Law and Justice in the Crown Colony of Lagos, and A Platter of Gold. Those are the two books by Olasupo Sasore. So I've come to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any other recommendations of great Nigerian history book recommendations, please leave them in the comments. And if this video was helpful and you would get some of these books, let me know as well. I will see you in my next video. Bye.